Well, I'd say wait for a few more minutes, but there is the tyranny of the YouTube. So we do have a live online with this going on. So we are broadcasting this to the city, and it'll be recorded, and we keep these on file so people can get some information. But for those of you who don't know me, my name is TJ Gilmore. I'm the mayor of Lewisville, and we're going to do a quick overview tonight of some things that I think are of import. Some of these things are processes and programs that just are kind of a touchstone. Other things like the heat and the water that we're dealing with right now, to give folks an update and how they can help, what is actually going on within our water system. Those types of things are always important. We've got a couple of other small folks, details that we're going to talk to. And we do have some wonderful folks from staff who are here to help support me because they're the subject matter experts. For those of you who maybe don't know, and those of you watching at home, your city council, city and mayor, we are all volunteers. We do get paid $50 a meeting. It's in the city charter, and we do roughly 2 meetings a month. So understand that most of us do this from a position of we're just like you, we're citizens, and we want to have input and be able to help steer the city in the direction that residents want to take it. So it's not one of these things like you see on TV where the mayor is like doing all that stuff, because that's not how city government works in Texas. Our city manager, Claire Powell, is here as well, so we'd be happy to speak with her. And what we're going to do tonight is we're really going to touch on 4 key things, actually 3, but one of them is broken into two categories. So the first is a lot of folks are asking, and we've gotten some updates from TxDOT on I-35. So what have we got going on within the corridor? The next is I've had a lot of residents asking me, so what can we do about water conservation? How can we be more water aware? And the city's actually got some great programs, so we're going to go through a few of those. We're going to talk about the water system itself. How do we get water? How do we maintain the water system? What's going on when we see water main breaks? Those types of things. Where do we get our water from? And then the other one that's, I think, big on the radar here, and it's especially for neighbors up in this part of the city, the fire department and the police department relocations as we create and build the new public safety building that's going to go where the police station is now, but we're rebuilding all of that. So why don't we go ahead and get started now that we've kind of gone through the agenda here. And I'm not going to read all this, but as you can see, there's a lot going on in I-35. So there's basically 3 interchanges that are getting redone. This is called Phase 1B. Originally, when TxDOT came through, they had this big, wonderful plan, and then they realized we can't afford it. And so what they did is they broke it into phases. They said, okay, here's Phase 1, and it's where we have, half of Fox done. We have up on 407, all of that interchange, Garden Ridge. So all of those that you've seen over the last. What it also did is it got us an 11-foot or wide lane, which is why when you move through here, the total number of lanes are correct for what they want at ultimate build out, but they're not wide enough yet. So they're working on that. When they add the frontage roads, straighten them all out and add additional lanes, they'll widen the lanes so that they get to 12 feet. But then we don't know where that's going to be. Is that 1B subsection A? Is that 1C? Is it version 2? We don't, there are plans, but they kind of come in sync with money. So right now we're dealing with 1B. 1B is going to deal with 3 major intersections. And I'm going to go from north to south. So the first one is going to be Main Street. So for those of you who enjoy sitting on the Main Street Bridge and how it kind of does this, that's going to go away. So I know there's some nostalgia there, but Main Street will be completely redone. We will add Texas U-turns. We're adding some great image panels for LHS to honor our fighting farmers as a way to replace the water tower imaging. One of the goals was that we wanted everybody who went through Lewisville to understand that they were in Lewisville and that we love our fighting farmers. And by gosh, and I'll show you a quick picture of it, this is going to do that. We'll get Texas U-turns in there as well, is my understanding. There'll be some much nicer ways to walk and bike across. So, it's not, I've done it. I've biked and walked across that bridge. Not the safest feeling in the world at all. And so I'm going to show you some images that will show you, yeah, we've really tried to improve that. And on all of these intersections, that's been a huge part of the design. And when council gave feedback, we're spending extra money to do this. TxDOT comes by and they say, this is what we're going to give you. And it's plain vanilla. And if you want any sprinkles, you got to pay for them. So things like extra lighting, things like art panels, things like sidewalks and extra bike pieces, all of that stuff comes from city budgets. So the council, when this was all being decided, this was several years ago now, it's amazing how time flies, said, we wanted to make sure that any of these intersections were good for mobility uses. They weren't just for cars, because people have to get around in lots of ways. So that's Main Street. Then you can see here, if you want, when we're done here, you can actually come up and see it a little bit closer. If you're on the YouTube, of course, you're going to see this just fine. But as you can see on Main Street, where it gets straightened, the frontage roads are now 3 lanes wide. So for those of you who ever get kind of caught there trying to get on the frontage road, I take the frontage road south to get onto 35 from where I live. And so I get stuck there at certain times of day. Having a 3rd lane would really help speed that along. You can see here we've got a large sidewalk berm area here, and you've got the sidewalk coming through. So there's this raised area where people can walk across. So it's really designed well for those other mobility plans. It's going to be longer. So because the road is going to be wider, the bridge is going to be wider, they actually have to make it longer. So those panels that we have today actually will move further back, even longer through the system there. Now, the next one, Business 121, as we come down, that one's a joy, right? You've got things coming in at angles. You've got, it's just not necessarily straight. This one will continue, again, underneath, and it's probably most visually like what you see up at 407, where you have the underpass and you've got the walking, you've got the light posts. Everything is allowed to move through there. And again, widening up of the frontage lanes, widening up of the pass here. What you're going to lose on this one is we've got those little flyovers. So if you're on the frontage road, you can just miss that intersection altogether, but you're still not on the freeway. Those go away. But we're getting Texas U-turns again. We're getting all of those pieces that are built in. And what you're seeing here is kind of straightening this out, so it comes all the way through. Now, I think what's most important about this one is that this project doesn't stop at the intersection. It actually realigns Mill Street. So Mill Street's not going to be that weird thing, and then you've got Texas Street on the other side, so it's gonna create a much smoother way to move through. Right now, this is where Mill Street kicks in, and this is now going to be a cul-de-sac, and so those businesses will still have access. But I think this is right here. James, 7-Eleven is right in here, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. So Mill Street actually will come out above the 7-Eleven. So a little further than you might think, but it's just right there. And that will be a fully lit 4-way intersection. It'll just be a lot smoother so that traffic will all continue to flow. So I'm excited about this one. I've lived here for 20 years. I take that all the time, and I always forget which lane I need to be in to be able to get under and across and down. So that for me, I think, is going to be a nice win. And then the next one is Corporate Drive. So Corporate will be the 3rd that is getting revamped. And again, much like 407, it's going to have the panels. It's going to have the walkways underneath. We've got Texas U-turns. Now, what's different about this one is that we're now going underneath instead of over. So that's going to be, I think, a pain point because they're raising the whole road bed. So Main Street stays up. That's absolutely. Business 121, we stay under, and Corporate flips. So So I like the design for corporate. I used to work down in that area, so I have taken the jug handles. The jug handles go away, potentially creating opportunities for landscaping or art that we might want to put in those spaces, because that's just public green space at that point. We got to work with TxDOT on it. But again, straightening, realigning, dropping the overpass to an underpass, and those are the big ones. Time frame, I'm hearing that Main Street will start the first quarter of next year. I'm hearing that these will start within 3 to 6 months after that. 3-year process, 2.5, 3 years from construction to finish. So exciting, really cleans up our front porch, really helps with that connectivity on Main Street. We're gonna have to live through a little bit of pain on it. So any questions about that before we move on to our next item? All right. Kelly, you want to help me with this one? Or I got Mindy and Kelly. Both of you can fight it out.
You get mic'd up over there.
Gotcha. So Kelly's overseeing our water utilities team, and forgive me, I don't remember everybody's title, but what's most important is that Kelly gives me the lake level every time we have council meetings. So the very first thing I ask him is, where's the lake level? And we're only, how far down?
So we're only about 1.5 feet down. So we're roughly about 95, 94% right now currently at the lake.
We're in great shape as far as water resources go, but you never know how long these droughts are going to last. So it's good to conserve. Would you mind just kind of taking us through a little bit on what we're doing with the water system, how we get our water, what you guys are doing to keep things going? Because we keep hearing from the city, you got to conserve, we got to, help us out here. Kind of maybe give us the background on why.
So once again, Kelly Rouse, Utilities Manager for the City of Lewisville. In terms of what our system really looks like, it's a very unique system. So we have, we mirror other cities in terms of receiving water from larger water purveyors. What makes us also very unique is the fact that we also have a water treatment plant in here in Lewisville. So currently, our subscription is our water that we get from those third-party purveyors are from Upper Trinity Regional Water District. Currently we get 4 million gallons per day from them, and then we're relatively a new customer from them. That occurred in November 15th, 2021, when we annexed the Castle Hills area. So we've been a customer from Dallas Water Utilities for quite some time, and currently we take about 10.5 million gallons per day from them. Once again, what makes us very unique is that we have a water treatment plant here at the city. Why this is interesting today is this summer that we're going through right now. So we have a number of issues. We have rapid growth in the area. We have elevated temperatures. We're 35 days, I believe, of 100-degree plus temperatures right now. And then finally, we haven't had precipitation for, I want to say till is it June 1st? So I was going to say until last Memorial Day was the last significant rain that we had.
Pretty sure it's when I put up my water meter because I wanted to see how much rain, and I haven't gotten any since.
We got 4.5 inches that day.
Yeah, we did.
That's all we get.
That's it.
We got a little sprinkle last Thursday, and it really wasn't anything to shake a stick at. But anyway, so the issue is the demands that we're seeing are really taking a toll on our plant and our strategy, our operating strategy for the system. We always try to use that purchased water that we treat from Dallas, from Upper Trinity. That cost, that treated water comes at a premium that we pay for, but we ultimately use that water treatment plant to meet those ebbs and flows in demand, right? So in the wintertime, we're really, really low coming out of our facility here at the city, but during the summertime, we ramp up the plant. The issue is that we are currently we're truly maxed out of the plant. We cannot go any higher than that 20.5 MGD out of that facility. That's a rating that's given to us by our primacy agency, TCEQ. And so once we hit that level, we're kind of relegated to going and looking at those third-party purveyors or third-party providers and looking for more water to meet those demands. So how do we ultimately try to control those demands? We are mandatory. We move into mandatory watering restrictions. Lewisville, from May 1st to September 30th, we're always going to be in a stage 1 watering restriction. And it's a standard setup. Most cities and most water systems mirror a kind of an even odd setup, and we're no different. We follow the same scheme, if you will.
And that's your street address. You get to water twice a week. You water on even. If you're an even number, you water on these 2 days. If you're an odd number, you on those 2 days. You will see certain folks that do sprinkle and still use their sprinklers. We get this all the time for Railroad Park. Railroad Park actually uses the runoff and storage water on the ground. It doesn't use water system water, so we keep those fields green because they have their own on-site water, that doesn't take from the system. We have a few households in the city that actually have their own water well.
Yep.
So you might see them using sprinklers. You might see somebody with new landscaping, a new business. You might see them watering in off times, but we give a waiver for that because they've invested in beautification. Bad time of year to plant, but let's make sure those things get through their first season.
Well, but typically, what we see the demands really peaking in the evening time, and it goes all the way into the morning time, and then there's a period of recovery. And so part of our plan is just to not water at all from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Number one, it's really inefficient in terms of watering. You're essentially wasting water. It's at the peak times in terms of heat during the daytime, and you're really seeing more evaporation from that water that you're putting on the ground.
The surrounding cities also follow this?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yep.
Yes, sir.
So, during that time frame, it is really a good time for us to recharge our reserves. So we're looking at our ground storage tanks. We're looking at that picture there, the elevated storage tanks. We're really trying to fill those up and recover from the previous night. To then, it's just kind of a wash, rinse, repeat kind of cycle to prepare for the next evening that's going to come. Yeah. So that's generally how the system overall operates.
Just hit
Space bar.
You got it.
But as you can imagine, all that flow running through these pipes in this system and water turning off, irrigation systems coming off, pumps coming off. That creates a lot of what we call water hammers throughout the system. And we also have a number of areas that have older infrastructure. Some of those lines are cast iron. Some of them are ductile iron. And the longer that they sit and tend to be more rigid, the longer they sit in the ground, and as that ground shifts, what you'll ultimately get is main breaks.
And you may have seen that on Main Street.
We live in this.
Yeah, exactly.
So we recently had. It's now the third main break, and it was over in front of Chipotle, and we go out there, we cut open the line, we put a clamp on the wherever the hole is in the line, and we essentially want the hole to dry out. We then put backfill in it, but before we can even put backfill in it, subsequently down the line it continues to pop, and it's just those transient surges that we're seeing in the system. Once again, older line, shifting soil, higher demands. It's just a recipe for you're going to see some breaks. So I was out there Tuesday night, I think, until about 10:30 or so. We had a contractor out there. They've actually replaced a full 30 some odd foot section of that main, and we have not had an issue. And keeping fingers crossed, knocking on wood, that we will not have any issues with that 12-inch over there, because that is a high traffic area. So in terms of for residents, what we're asking is if you see leaks or if you experience leaks, please give us a call. 9 times out of 10, some residents may not even know that their irrigation controller is maybe not set correctly. In my personal home, anytime I have a power outage, my irrigation controller just resets to 0, and I'll walk out at 2 in the afternoon, and all of a sudden my irrigation's going off. So I have to continually reset my irrigation controller. But yeah, if you have any issues, please let us know. You can always call us, and we just want to make sure that we're getting in touch with that resident or that commercial property, whoever that is, and just informing them, hey, let's work on our irrigation habits there.
And another way to reach the city is we have a great app. You can go to your app store on your smartphone and just search for Our Lewisville. That app, you can take a picture, you can put a GPS pin in it, you can just send a text. Hey, I've got a water leak in this neighborhood. And that actually creates a work ticket within the city. So it's traceable, it's trackable, and you can do it anonymously if you don't want the city knowing who it is reporting stuff. That's fine. The Lewisville app is a great way. The Our Lewisville app is a great way to let staff know as well.
In terms of what we're doing today, we've hit a lot of high-end commercial users, a lot of multifamily. They typically tend to be high-volume users in terms of irrigation. You've probably seen throughout Lewisville, there's some bandit signs reminding people of what the watering schedule is. And then we do have a section in the city, which is in that Castle Hills area. We have message boards out there. They tend to be a little bit higher volume users in terms of irrigation, and we're just really trying to get that message out. And ultimately, we need people to receive the message, so that's the efforts that we're making. And in terms of the future in our water system, so for the last 2 years, we've been under a master planning effort, a comprehensive master planning effort, not only looking at just the lines in the system, but also at the plant as well. And there are some improvements and changes that are going to be coming down the line. We're looking at probably in the 7 to 10 year mark that was identified in that plan. And really, ultimately, before we get to expanding the plant, the plan would be to take these incremental bumps from those third-party purveyors. So we just try to plan out those bumps as best as we possibly can. But obviously, given the environment that we're currently in, there are just some things that you can't plan for. I wish I could know when it was actually going to be 109, 110 degrees for triple,
And
3 days in a row.
to piggyback on that, my understanding as we were looking at this coming year's budget is that there was actually a programmed addition of a million gallons of water. That was planned, it was going to be presented in the budget. So here we are purchasing that. Okay, so we're 6 months behind in the planning process as far as when we pull the trigger. I think that's a pretty good metric. We're not buying more water than we need, but to only, basically it's a budget cycle. That's outstanding. I think that's, really good planning on the part of our city staff. So, Kelly, anything else?
No, that's all I have.
I appreciate it. Thank you, sir. So, that is Our Lewisville. That's the one. You got it. What I like about that, too, is I don't have to wait until City Hall's open, right? If I see a water leak in the middle of the night, I'm sending it, right? It's a great tool for that. Now, to speak to some of the things we can do, we do have some additional tools available to our residents for being water-wise, to be able to be more efficient. I grew up in the Arizona desert, so cactus, brown, those are things I relate to. It's like home cooking. But this much heat gets a little rough. But are there things that we can do? Absolutely. So I've got Mindy here. She's part of our team, and she's going to take us through some of the water conservation credit programs that the city has available. And again, this slide's a little busy. It'll be on YouTube, but there's also a whole web page that you can get to, and it looks like we've got some handouts.
We do have some handouts.
Woohoo!
Thank you, TJ. And it's great to see all of y'all here tonight. I appreciate you taking time out of your evening to come and listen to more about what we have going on here in the city. I did bring some flyers about this program if you'd like to take one of these home with you, or if you would like to share it with your neighbors in your neighborhood. We definitely have plenty of these. It's also got my contact information on here if you have any additional questions. But Kelly mentioned just a moment ago, and just to introduce myself, I don't think I did that. Mindy White, I'm our sustainability manager here for the city. So I'm all about trying to help us be a more sustainable community, both with what we're doing internally and then with what our residences and community members are doing out in Lewisville. So this particular program is something we started in 2018, and it's a program that is designed to help incentivize people to make new water conservation improvements around their homes. And there's a number of different ways that can look. It can be something physical, like a low-flow shower head, low-flow toilet, but we also have a number of different things that are related to sprinkler systems, which both of the previous speakers have mentioned. We have smart irrigation meters. We have irrigation system inspections, which is super helpful. Like Kelly mentioned, how some people may not even know their irrigation system is malfunctioning or might have a leak. This is something where we will pay every single year $50 towards having a licensed irrigation professional come out and take a look at your system, make sure it's programmed right, make sure that everything is operating the way it's supposed to. You don't have a head pointed towards the street or the sidewalk, and it just kind of gives you kind of a refresher every year. And so we really want to encourage residents to take a look at that. This program is for single-family residential customers at this time. But maybe in the future it might expand beyond that in future years, but right now we're just really focused on how can we support our single-family residential utility customers with conserving water in their homes. We're also looking at potentially adding another option potentially in the future, which I'll get to in just a second, but I just wanted to show a quick snapshot here of what we've seen to date with the program. The most popular option by far has been the low-flow toilets. One of the things that I think is really surprising, this bottom line right here, it's kind of hard to see the color, but this orange line at the bottom is the irrigation system inspection, which is the one that we offer every single year, and not a lot of people are taking advantage of that yet. And I would love to see more people out in the community taking advantage of trying to get their systems lined up. And then this is something we're considering for future opportunities for the program, trying to see how we can get more of those, again, irrigation systems tuned up each year. How can we reach out to our new Castle Hills residents and get them more aware of our program? And then how can we look at new credit options to serve our community, maybe even including having some water-wise landscaping with native plants or pollinators that might be an option in the future. So those are all things that we're investigating, how we can expand this program moving forward. And again, here's my contact information. It's also on this flyer, which you're welcome to take. If any of y'all have any specific questions about it, I'd love to chat with you as well.
I didn't even realize that there was such a thing. I have my shell nuts in the north sprinkler system. So.
Yep. Well, and the reason we really are so focused, you've seen us repeatedly talk about irrigation. Lawns. 70% roughly of our water use is lawns. So low-hanging fruit. If we can get people to dial that in. I'm actually really excited about looking at more native plants, native landscaping options. I think a lot of that is just education. And I've been talking with the Master Naturalists and a couple of the other groups here in Denton County. We've got some wonderful resources. We just got to teach people that it's just as easy as buying a block of plants from, your local garden center. You just buy them and they're native, and you have a lot less water, a lot less issues.
But the other thing I've been noticing is that the native plants that used to thrive and survive here, the extreme cold and the extreme heat from climate change is killing even them. We almost need a master list of the sturdy ones.
Yeah.
Because it's not the same as it was 10 years ago.
No, it's definitely shifted, and I've even seen some maps where we've gone from 7A or 7B to that number's changed. I don't remember which way it shifted, but I've seen some of those. 8A, yeah. Okay. And yeah, we've definitely, our Master Naturalists in Denton County are absolutely on top of that. And it's exciting. When I talk to them, they really get, I'm like, I want to rip out everything. I can't. I got 3 kids in college. I have to restrain myself. But yeah, we've got some great resources, and I know Mindy and the team are working on that really hard. I think we'll be seeing that here later this year as we do some of our ordinance rework.
When you say Master Naturalists, is that the same as the Master Gardeners?
2 different ones, naturalists, but both groups. So think of naturalists as everything outside the fence. Think of gardeners as everything within the fence.
Okay.
Is how I've been taught to learn it. And I'm sure somebody will correct me on that. But the gardeners tend to be, I think, a little more flexible on non-natives and other types of species, whereas the naturalists tend to really hone in on what lives here. So, does that help?
We're also working with the Native Plant Society of Texas to give us exactly what you were talking about, that best practices list of what would work best in our current conditions here. So there's definitely some intentionality with that.
Has the native seed company, or is that?
I think he's a part of that group, but it's not through him.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, he's got great stuff. I'm actually looking at the buffalo grass right now. I got it in the mail. I got the new catalog. So now, especially up here in our neighborhoods, I did want to talk a little bit about our police and fire relocation, and I've created a couple of small maps here. So as we rebuild that whole section, for those of you who aren't aware, we passed a bond election here this past year. Thank you to the residents in November. And that bond election is going to pay for a complete rebuild of our police station, of Central Fire Station. It will provide for training space. It will provide for an emergency EOC, Emergency Operations Center, which is a hardened center that can survive tornadoes. We don't have one in the city. That's a real challenge. If we ever do get hit, there's no hardened facility that we can use as a central place to get resources to residents. We have plans and we work around that, but to have that is I think, really important. And then it will also have a parking structure to protect all those police cars now that kind of sit out in the open. I'm always terrified when a hailstorm comes through because that's a lot of vehicles. So that whole piece, though, we're replacing the buildings that these folks are working in. So we've really worked with the staff of both our police and our fire departments to get their feedback. What do they need? What are they looking for in a new facility? What's working? What's not working? So for that 2+ years that we're going to be in construction, we need to find a new home for these guys. So the first one is, of course, our police department, and they are going to be down here. This is I-35. They're going to be down here in the Waters Ridge Plaza Business Park, down in that space. I want to thank the owners down there because they've really worked with us to provide parking and space. So the police department will probably be a little more closely located to where they get some of their calls. It won't necessarily be up in our neighborhoods like it is right now, because I mean the police station's right down the street, but we're going to give them some temporary space, and we're excited to give them that opportunity and see how that works with their timing. But you know, we got to get them out of the way so that we can build this new space as fast as possible. One of the things we're really pushing against is we've seen this inflation climb, and it's really hitting the cost of this project. So the faster we can move, the better it is for our tax dollars. The other spot, and it's right here, we got a little red dot. So for those of you, here's what I call the triangle, that this is Valley 1, but then we got Valley Parkway here. We're coming all the way up on up to First Baptist. And I want to thank First Baptist. They have an empty lot up here on the very north end of their property, and we are going to place 2 temporary structures there. They're interesting. They're canvas and steel, is my understanding, and those are going to be what house the vehicles and the fire department for Central Fire Department. So what does that mean for us in this neighborhood? That, you know, the fire department is always, and so is the police department, they don't ratchet on those sirens when they don't have to, but you are going to get a little more noise up in this area just because they moved. So I want to make residents aware of that, because you know, our fire department has to get where they need to go, and they need to get there safely, but they also do take into consideration, they're very considerate of the neighborhoods. They know if they're running around with sirens on, it creates some agita. So that move up there to temporary space, of course the church has been wonderful. I have to thank our faith-based community all throughout the community. The last one of these we did at First United Methodist down on the south side of town. Here we are at the Episcopal Church of the Annunciation on this side of town, providing space for me to do these types of workshops. We have First Baptist, leasing us space, and they're giving us a great rate. To be able to do that, even though it's going to impact them as well. So our faith community has done a great job of helping the city help your tax dollars go further, quite frankly. And so I have a lot of thanks for that. With that being said, those are kind of the big issues, things that I'm hearing on social media, things that are kind of coming in through the pipeline. We're getting into budget season, so City Council will start looking at the budget. We've got a budget retreat coming up next month, I think it is. Maybe I'm accelerating the calendar, I never know. But we start looking at the budget now so that by October 1 we're ready to go. So those are all the things there. And if you're interested in those, you can follow me on social media, and I typically give some updates. And the city does a wonderful job. The city website has several newsletters that you can sign up for and to get updated. So that's kind of to me, it's all online now. It really has gotten that way. We still provide that monthly mailer. You may have seen the Horizon comes to your mailbox, and that goes to every residence in the city. We still think it's important to get something in the mail. It gives people a different way to look at things. They may not know where to go on the internet, so that's another way to do things. So with that, I'm going to be closing down my prepared statements, but I am more than happy to answer any questions that you all have. We're right about on time, so questions, comments, concerns, I'm here for it.
I have a question about code enforcement.
Okay.
It used to be they would come around and if your trees are hanging too low to the street, you would get a notice. And we have gotten notices.
I have to.
You know that I'm a walker.
Yes.
I walk everywhere. And there is no code enforcement going on at all.
Okay.
And I'm wondering, is that because it's not in the budget? Or why is that happening?
We'll have to check with the code team to see what's going on. I know we've got some dead trees in the neighborhood that are still around from the freeze from 2 years ago, and or this last February still had a freeze. So I know there's some of that. I know code tries to get compliance. So it may be one of those issues where they're dealing with the property owner. But it's just taken more time. If there is one, I would say that another again, the Our Lewisville app to be another pair of eyes is a great tool. If you see something, this is a way for you. And I get it. People tell me all the time, well, I'd report it, but then they're going to come and get me. And I'm like, no, that's not how it works. That's not how it has ever worked. But people just, they have a tendency to not want to look like a nail and be upsetting or any of that. That's why there's an anonymous option on the app.
So you want to be a good neighbor.
You do, but you also want to have neighbors be good. I mean, I know for me, I've got a cubic yard of gravel sitting in my back driveway, and it's going to sit there until it gets cool because I was not able to get all of my stuff done when I bought it. But yeah, so I'm asking for grace, but by the same token, yeah, there has to be, at some point there has to be some push. I probably should have said something. So, we're all human. We all have challenges, but if there are some things, so first up, I'll reach out to code. We'll have a conversation just to see what's been going on in the neighborhood. This guy in the green shirt right here is going to be able to help you as a follow-up because he oversees that team. Maybe some of it's just to get context, but no, we have not cut the budget. We have not changed. Staffing may be a little bit of a challenge, but I haven't heard about it in the code side.
Probably affected some of that stuff.
Yeah.
COVID.
Yeah, so code is still good. Did COVID throw some things wonky, and are we still trying to? That may be part of it too. But our code team, we try to give them as many tools as possible to both carrots and sticks. Here are ways that we can help with our property enhancement program. Here, if you choose not to be a good neighbor, here are some opportunities for remediation. And so definitely have this conversation right there, and we can follow up on specifics.
So I guess it's not okay to carry pruning shears and just flip as you go so you don't walk
I've
smack
done
them.
that.
Okay.
Well, there was one year where the garbage guy actually came out to me and said, "Look, I need you to trim this pecan tree," and I'm sitting here with 3 little kids in elementary school. I'm like, "Yeah, I do."
We have got some of the stuff over in the alley too. We've got notices to do that.
Yeah, and it's usually the garbage trucks that let us know, just because they're the ones getting scraped by, and it's that 13 foot is the height of a garbage truck.
Whatever your route is, you just take those big old shears and you just.
Yeah, I've gone out.
I'm gonna see her around the neighborhood with a chainsaw. You're making this. You're gonna make this challenging.
That's not gonna give the police any concern.
Listen, she looks harmless.
The chainsaw, I doubt.
Are we okay?
Well, the other thing I wanted to ask about is people that just park their cars on the street, they're expired as far as their inspection. Like years expired, like 2019.
So on Yeah, so I don't know if the COVID exemption is still working. I think that's done. That you have to have registered and pay. You can't have paper tags anymore. But there's still things going on with that. You can absolutely report that using the app as well, and have our team come take a look and get it off the street, especially if it's expired tags. The rule is 48 hours on the street. And so if it's beyond that, you can absolutely report it. That one's a little harder because they don't know. Code has to see the 48 hours to enforce the rule, right? They can't take your word for it. Sorry, they just we're government. We have to dot I's, cross T's. But you can absolutely report that. I've done this before. I'll take photos of the leaves and stuff that have accumulated underneath the wheels, and that usually is a good indicator that this thing has been there for more than 48 hours.
The photos are timestamped.
Yeah, and that's unless you know how to change your timestamps.
Oh. We have to prove it in court.
Yeah, that's the thing. We have to. Yeah. Our police and everybody, code enforcement as well. We have to prove it in court. It can't just be hearsay. And I know that's frustrating, and I know that it can be a challenge, but we live in a rule of laws. We live in a country of laws, and we have to keep that system sane. But I would say absolutely you can report using the app, especially if they're out of code, or they're not safe. They haven't been inspected. The 48-hour thing, yeah, you're gonna have to deal with that. Big trucks can't be. I know we had an issue where we had an 18-wheeler that would park in our neighborhood. So yeah, but and folks, no city in the world has enough police and enough code to catch everything every day. You can't do it. So we need citizen engagement. We absolutely need residents who are willing to put a picture on an app and send it in anonymously. You don't have to worry about that. To help these guys. And then what these guys are going to be able to do is come and say, hey, look, here's the rules. I need you to help me get compliance. And most folks do. Most folks do. It's a very small percentage that don't. And we have tools for that. Does that help?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. How else can I help? Yes, ma'am.
Utility relocation project.
Okay.
We're on the east side, coming up through high school and Crockett and through to the hospital.
Gotcha.
Right, that's a city project, correct?
That one,
Contracted that, I believe.
Eric, is that us or is that the state?
It would be the state of Texas up on the I-35 right away. I'm not aware of, this old Crockett High School on the west end of those streets would be the state of Texas with the private utility companies, Texas and Mexico Power, Frontier, maybe Spectrum, City of Lewisville Water and Sewer for the widening of really Main Street Bridge. So some of that is to that extent.
Well, this is where they're replaced, where it's going to run, but I thought the city had contracted what I'd read in minutes some time ago.
Sewer.
For water and sewer.
Water and sewer.
Yeah.
That's what started first.
Yeah.
I live.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm in no person's land. They took the houses around me, but unfortunately not mine.
Okay.
So I see this every day.
Unfortunately.
I tried to get them to buy it, where they bought all those houses up in Island Village.
Yeah.
Just because they didn't like it, but they wouldn't buy mine. Too middle class, I guess. But at any rate, the immediate concern, this evening's main concern is, right where the chiropractor used to be?
Yes.
Okay, they've come back in. First they trimmed trees when they were doing the transmission line.
Yeah.
Okay, now somebody else different is in cutting trees.
Okay.
Okay, there's nothing there, there's no water truck, there's nothing, they're using chainsaws and stuff.
Okay.
If a fire breaks out, there's nothing for fire suppression. If you drive by there, you will see these lovely huge mounds of cut up trees.
Sure.
And everything dried out up through there. I thought, man, somebody throws out a cigarette on that access road. Our neighborhood's in big trouble just right now.
Okay, fair.
And I doubt that that's how they're supposed to be doing this, because when the first crew came, which was a larger company, came through to trim preparatory to the transmission lines and stuff, They were cleaning up as they went. We've got debris all over the street, all of which is a fire hazard.
Yeah, yeah.
And the second thing is, all of those contractors, since they've been working on that for the transmission lines and everything, they have now decided this is a road from high school up to Crockett on up to Cornell.
Okay.
So I get the dust storm every time somebody decides to come by.
Gotcha.
And they did not put the silt fence back up. They just create, they have their own road. They're
Okay, I
all the
gotcha.
contractors.
Okay.
So somebody somewhere should be overseeing what's going on this project.
What I love about these forums is that we hear that, and then the people who can absolutely follow up and make it happen, my city staff, they're right here. So I appreciate this. So I will have somebody follow up with you. We'll get your information before this is done tonight, and we'll follow up with you on details so that you have
I'm really concerned. Like
Absolutely, you should be.
Do today with all this, drying branches and brush. I thought, well, we're dead. What we want.
Well, I hope not. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not what I want. That's not what anybody wants. So.
I mean, I would like for them to have bought my house, but I prefer them not buy.
Yes, yes, that'd be a plus. That'd be a plus. So we'll have somebody from staff will reach out to you when this is done tonight, get your information, and we'll be able to follow up with you on details and see what we find out when we go out there. But I appreciate you bringing the awareness, because I get that there's inconvenience with construction, but it sometimes becomes a lot more than a nuisance.
It's a utility pole where they want the schedule was at,
Yeah.
not a transmission line. Because one group told me they were going to take mine for my lines to come off.
Sure.
Electricity and stuff, but they were just going to put a temporary one somewhere and then replace that one as is. And then the next week, here comes some other, and the people who surveyed everything, they put all these little stakes.
Yeah.
What was supposed to be a pole, what was supposed to be a guy line, well, when there was nothing was marked right there by my fence, they had put the new utility pole, which means they have to take out one of my pecan trees. I said, that goes right through the tree to get the
Yeah,
meter
yeah.
and everything. And I have no idea, because every day you get a different answer.
Sure, and some of that sequencing, right? So
Somebody has to be auditing and overseeing.
Yes.
I've never seen anybody from the state out there, not once. Not once, that's their
So
problem.
we do have a project manager for that project, so for the water and the sewer, so we'll let us get that person in contact with you. And they can also reach out.
I think they're done with the water.
That's all right.
Water part.
They'll know the other folks to contact. Yeah, yeah. We'll get you some answers. We'll get you some people to talk
The
to.
other thing about them using that for a road where there's actually just dirt, that's
Right.
okay. But when they go to park their trucks under the shade and everything, when you've got, hot exhaust pipes and stuff over there, where again, you've got brush and debris and everything.
Yeah.
It's just like, they haven't a clue what our situation is right now.
Yeah, yeah. I appreciate your awareness. I appreciate you bringing it to our attention. I know we'll get some answers for you. So, anything else?
Yes, actually. Who in the city is, I guess, liaising or whatever with the I-35 expansion project? Because my other big thing, aside from my area, is we're supposed to get noise barriers. Now, since everything is already down and out, there's enough noise barriers are supposed to come in fairly close.
Okay.
I would like to find out who I speak to represent our neighborhood in terms of talking to TxDOT about how to.
I think it's the guy in the black shirt right behind you. So we'll get you taken care of.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Well, we're going to button this up unless there's any other questions. I really appreciate you coming out. I know it's hot and it's 7 o'clock in the middle of the week, but this is something I do, and I'm going to keep doing it whether we have one person or 20 people. And the reason I believe that transparency in government means being out with the residents, being out with the people you represent, and this is how I do it. So if you guys have suggestions, if you have organizations or groups that want to hear from the city, want to hear from the mayor, I'm more than happy to be a resource. Would love to come out and talk. I think too often today that we kind of sit back and we don't feel like we're engaged or part of a community. And Lewisville's my home. I raised 3 kids here. This community means a lot to me, and I think the more that people get engaged, the more the community means to them, and the better it becomes. Is everything perfect? No. Can everything absolutely be made better when we're all pulling together? Absolutely. So with that, y'all have a great evening. Thank you so much for being here. And I'm going to hang around for more questions, but we're going to shut down the YouTube. So thank y'all for watching.